Good morning, everyone. This is Mark Gambale from Gambale Labs. You are at the Recovering with Resiliency panel peer series. We're super excited about today's talk. I'm just going to give another minute for people to log in, and we are in broadcast mode right now. And one of the things I did want to share with you is if you have a question at any point during today's talk, just type it into the bottom panel. There's a section there called Q&A, and sometimes it's also called chat. So you can just go in there and type the question. Might be something for one of our panelists, might be a question for Megan. All right, so we'll go live in just 30 more seconds. Awesome. All right, hey everybody, welcome to session 2 for Recovering with Resiliency. This is a peer panel series, and it is all about how to reposition your small business for success. We are recording this session today. If you missed the last session, which we did 2 weeks ago, that was on rebranding, and it was about how rebranding is never done, and it was about how marketing is shifted during the pandemic. And we had 3 restaurant owners talk about, and 3 restaurant owners from Lousiville talk about how they changed, how they've pivoted, and what they're looking forward to in the future. And that was a really great dynamic session. Today, we're talking about rebuilding your business, how your peers did it, and we're super excited about that. If you don't already have these other 2 on your radar, rebooting your finances, how to restructure and shift and use technology to really help you get through this tough time. And then lastly, business reinvention, pivoting your business, which is really just entrepreneurship at its core. So definitely check out these other really exciting sessions. And we're super excited to have Megan Pierce from the city of Lousiville. She's the Economic Vitality Director. Excuse me. And Megan Pierce has been partnering with us for this really exciting series. And Megan actually had some updates last session. And, you know, Megan, if you can kind of just share those updates, if there's been anything new, or just kind of go over those important messages.
Sure. Thank you, Mark, and glad to be here today. Very appreciative of our business owners taking time to have these conversations with us. So just very generally, you know, the Office of Economic Vitality is purely focused on our business community. Those things usually fall into the categories of retention, attraction, and expansion. But, you know, we also do just a lot of day-to-day support communications. That's been really important these last few months, trying to break down information into palatable, understandable pieces. You know, when executive orders were coming out every other day, fortunately, that has slowed a little bit. We've also developed programs for grants and incentives, as well as for trying to market Lousiville. That's been focused mainly on our local community the last few months, and making sure they know which of our businesses are open, the services they're offering, and how they can stay loyal customers. And then on the next slide, I have just a couple updates from last time. So mentioned that we were in discussions with the City Council about recovery and improvement program. This is a matching grant program, and it was approved by City Council with $150,000 of initial funding. So we're in the process of launching that. I anticipate I'll have an email actually going out tomorrow that will announce September 3rd as the opening date for applications. So a few things for people who may have applied and or received one of our emergency solutions grants earlier this year. These are matching funds, so you need to pledge 50% of the project. The city would pay for potentially the other 50% of that project. Those grants are up to $10,000. So, you know, if you have a grand major improvement project of $20,000, the city could pay up to $10,000 of that. But they don't have to be huge projects to be eligible. So there are 5 project criteria. I really encourage everyone to read through those. And one reason we're not launching it until September 3rd is that people can call or email with questions. So if you read the project criteria and you say, I'm not sure if what I'm thinking about fits or if it might be eligible for funding, just get in contact with me, having those conversations so that you feel certain about whether the program is a fit for you and what might be feasible. And then what we've done is we're planning to have the program open through the end of the year or until the funding is allocated. So unlike our emergency solutions grants, excuse me just a second, this is a rolling application process. So it's not 3 days, get your application in, and everything will be reviewed. We'll take applications as they're received, we'll review them, we'll allocate funds. And the last thing that I want to mention is these are going to be approved administratively, and funds would be given at project outset. So one concern we wanted to try and address is that businesses don't have great cash flow right now given the economic circumstances. So if you have a project, maybe you can pay for part of it, but maybe you don't have the cash to pay for all of it. So the city would give its approved funding to the business when the project is approved, rather than waiting until the project is completed and reimbursing the business for those expenses. So until the project is opened, we have a website. It's listed here on the slide, and that has all the criteria and eligibility information, as well as my contact information to get in touch.
Amazing. Thank you, Megan, for sharing that update. I'm sure a lot of the business owners across Lousiville have been eagerly waiting for this to come out, especially if they've already had ideas that they've been thinking about or wanted some encouragement from the city to kind of start that dialogue and say, hey, I've been thinking about this. This could be something really great. So thanks for your continued support on that. So today, Gambale Labs is hosting this session, and we're super excited to be part of this with the City of Lousiville. Just a little bit about me. My background is in product launch, product technology, product commercialization, as well as digital marketing. I'm the founder of Gambale Labs, and I work with Ellie. And Ellie's our digital art director. And Ellie, if you can kind of give us a little bit of your background as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. So I'm actually a recent CU grad, Go Buffs. And like Mark said, I do a lot of the art direction for Gambale Labs, which includes logo design, website redesign, everything pretty much visual that we work on here. And we really like to create a visual story and a really solid brand foundation for a lot of the clients that we work with to really give them the things they need to move forward and create a really strong brand moving forward. So, yeah.
Yeah, and to that point, we often get called the marketing team for hands-on businesses. Whether you're not part of a marketing team or you don't have one now, we really kind of provide the time, the energy, and the know-how that you might just not have as part of your organization. We all could use more time. We could all use more energy and more expertise. And to what Ellie has said, we've done a lot of business rebranding and pivoting work during this year, as well as logo creation, digital lead generation. If you're finding that you're wanting more of something from a sales and a marketing perspective, definitely reach out. We'd like to have that conversation with you and see how we can support you in your growth. So today we're super excited to have Sarah Lynch, the owner of Assorted Goods and Candy, sharing her story and stories along this way. And Wendy Wassam as well, a founder of Old Friends. And you guys might not know this if you haven't been into the business, their businesses, but if you have, they're neighbors, and they've shared a lot of interesting stories along the way, which they'll share with us today. And we're just, pleased to have that conversation going. So now I'd like to welcome Sarah to share her story and just kind of walk us through what things have been like. And for the audience that's there, that's with us today, definitely chat in your questions as you get them, and we'd love to address them. So take it away, Sarah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. As Mark mentioned, I own Assorted Goods and Candy, which is located on Front Street in Lousiville, and we sell candy and gifts. So obviously you can see from the screen that our target audience are in many ways the youngest members of the Lousiville community. We cater to a lot of kids. So when BVSD announced on March 12th that schools were closing March 13th, which was a Friday, I decided to close my doors to customers on that day, as I felt pretty strongly I come to this business as a parent in a lot of ways. And so I felt that it was really confusing for kids to hear that school is closed, but one of their favorite little stores is still open. And so I decided that made a lot of sense for who I am and the role that Assorted Goods plays in the Lousiville community. That made for a tough weekend because a lot of other shops were open and I was doubting my decision. I came into the shop on Saturday to think about how I could position to do phone orders. I did not have any online shopping at that point, and I had kids knocking on the door. And then I realized, gosh, this is just really, I'm sending mixed signals again. So I went home, locked the door, and thought, okay, I'm just going to close till school's open again. Which, as we all know, has still not happened. So I just sort of started to figure out how I would do everything by phone. And then I realized I needed to have a website because I had a couple of calls saying, I'm looking for very specific items and the phone conversations are onerous. And so I then spent the next 5 days working with Square, one of the point of sale systems, and I built an online web store specifically focused on Easter on my own in a few days. And that is how we pivoted the most dramatically during the first half of the shutdown, was to realize that there was an online demand and that Easter was going to drive business to me and that I had the items on hand to sell. And so I figured a way to make it happen without having to outsource that. Never built a website in my life, but was able to kind of with blinders on, figure my way out. So those were the biggest pivots I made in the early days of COVID.
Nice. And Sarah, if you could also talk about some of the other things along the way, like just the challenge of buying items and dealing with vendors. I mean, we're talking about the core of retail. If you don't have something in your shop, even if you had a line around the block, you can't stay open. So what are some of the things that you've faced and that you've dealt with to kind of share?
Well, one of the things I learned very quickly was how important the local vendors I had built relationships with previously were to staying stocked, specifically for Easter. My demand for Easter was greater than it was the year before because very quickly parents, grandparents, friends were realizing that the items that they might have picked up in other locations or ordered online were not going to be accessible, either because going into a store wasn't something they felt comfortable doing. And I found very quickly that shipping was interrupted and not reliable. And so I had particularly 4 vendors, one large one, Hammond's in Denver, and then 3 small businesses that primarily made chocolate. And I reached out to them and I was able to keep getting product all the way through to the week before Easter. So Easter was in the middle of April. So for about 3 weeks, I was on the phone almost every day and was able to connect with these businesses all within driving range for me. And that was huge. And I realized how important local connections are in this time in particular, and relationships that are going to be important to me going forward, because they were who were there for me when things got the most difficult.
Yeah, and didn't you drive up physically with your car with a
Yep.
map? Said,
From
okay,
Longmont to Denver. to back again. I have a little Mini Cooper Clubman. You can fit a lot of candy in a Mini Cooper. Not that this is an advertisement for that. And I would zip from place to place, and I'd have my mask on and my gloves, and I would meet them, and I'd have the back of my car open, and in would go the chocolate bunnies. I had chocolate bunnies from all ends of the Front Range coming into Assorted Goods. And it was great because and we talked a little bit about this before, but I had early on not really advertised heavily about Easter. I didn't know how to handle this. And I had one customer order an Easter basket for me, and the next day post on Facebook that she was able to do that. And that single post was the catalyst for many, many, many orders in Lousiville, Lafayette, all throughout our little local area. And so that, once that started, I really realized I have got to get more product every single day. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in March and early April in my little Mini Cooper.
Man, that's just a wild story that you went to that extent of just driving around and finding local new vendors that you hadn't worked with before. You're like, gosh, I got to have something for my customers. That's an amount of dedication that really seemed to carry you through. So that's awesome. You did touch a little bit, Sarah, upon social media and engagement, as well as kind of looking ahead to what the future holds here. What are some of the other things that you kind of experimented with along the way in terms of retail? Like, could you actually sell your candy as e-commerce, or did you have to do some creative things to compete against the Targets, the Amazons, and the others out there that also still have, and have had candy before? Like, what did you learn and experience that way?
I'd say there's a couple of things in particularly that I think were important. One is having those local brands that you don't find in Target, Walmart, other stores. Two was I created some bundles online. So one of the things I've learned throughout this COVID process of having the physical store closed, having the physical store open with accommodations, is parents and grandparents like easy. They like a bundled together. Here's a lollipop, a chocolate, and a stuffed animal all together for Easter. One stop, click a button, I deliver. Kids like choice. And so that's where, not having the physical store opened, they like to browse. To them, Assorted is not just a means to an end, it's an experience. It's a chance to come and imagine all of the different candies that they can try, and it's social. And so that business is hard to recreate in e-commerce. So what I'm learning going forward is any online sales I have are really going to be focused on particular either events or holidays, and they will involve groupings of products so that it's easy for people to click, get what they need. And the physical store will be more about the experience of browsing and imagination and fun and brightness.
Fantastic. That's a great sort of taste and teaser for just a little bit of what you've gone through for the last few months. What I'd like to do now is just also introduce Wendy and have her share her story of what it was like to go through the same thing, the challenges that she faced, and then let's just open it up as a panel and keep the conversation rolling.
Hi, everyone. Wendy Wassam, owner of Old Friends. It was my 10th anniversary, right around when we closed our doors. So I closed doors on March 15th. Sarah, that might have been a few days after yours. That was the Saturday or Sunday after. And I've got to be honest, it was complete shock. So I pretty much went home that day, and I didn't have a clue as to what to do. Unlike Sarah, I don't have a whole lot of local vendors. My things are shipped in usually, and I just gone to market. I had just put in huge orders for Easter and Father's Day and Mother's Day and spring and fun and bright and humorous and, you know, optimism. And it just knocked me off my feet. So I literally went home and did nothing for several days, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And as I was looking through social media, I saw some of my vendors, my local consignment artists, were making masks. And I thought, well, they're all turning to that, I'll do it. So I took 2 local artists, and they had sold different things in my store over the years. And we got together and made masks. And really what I did, I didn't make them with them, but what I did was, in my kitchen, I laid out masks, took pictures of them. I was able to go and pick them up locally. I drove up to Longmont every day, drove to Boulder, and I literally picked up the masks, took pictures of them, and put them on social media. And within 5 to 15 minutes, they were sold. I would sell, at the beginning, I was selling 80 to 100 a day. These ladies were making them as fast as they could. The next thing was people were looking for things to do. You know, as you remember, it was cold out, you know, and we actually had snow, and everyone was scared to even go outside. So what I ended up doing, I sold these masks and I delivered. So I was doing work during the day, and I'd deliver until sometimes 10 o'clock at night. You know, my husband and I would drop off packages and leave them on driveways or doorways. We had no contact whatsoever with any of the customers. And then they started wanting more. You know, they wanted puzzles, paint by numbers. And so I had to switch everything I was thinking for Easter and Father's Day and Mother's Day, and switch to things people could do at home and feel good about. You know, my stuffed animals were big, you know, for scared children, you know, that had no idea what was going to happen, you know, and something fun for them. But I must say those first few weeks it was scary. I didn't know if my doors were going to be closed forever. And I was clueless as to what I should do. All the other retailers that I knew that sold things like me, I mean, they didn't have a clue either. So I didn't have anywhere to look, you know, even my vendors. What I did was I canceled all my orders and just started, you know, giving people what they wanted. And at that time, that first month, they wanted masks. They wanted masks and they wanted puzzles. So I did it. That's what I carried, and I switched over, and that's one of my biggest sellers today is masks. Never thought I'd be in the mask business. Not sure I ever wanted to be in the mask business, but it's done very well for me.
Nice. Thank you, Wendy, for kind of sharing that teaser intro. You touched upon this a little bit of just taking pictures of the masks and putting them out on social and getting immediate orders. What other things did you do and put out on social that you felt were engaging and the right kind of thing for your audience?
That's a good question. I had to be really sensitive. I've got a lot of stuff in my store that is, you know, kind of risky and inappropriate and humorous. And I didn't think it was the time to do that, to have those kind of things out there. You know, people were scared and it was serious. And slowly but surely, I brought the humor into it because that also was very important. We all needed to start laughing and smiling again. So what I did was I had a website that I never really did anything on. And I just started loading pictures on, just one after another. And that besides the social media, Instagram and Facebook, that helped me. People were scouring social media and web pages, and they were looking for answers too, you know, and it was helpful. It was new to me. I didn't go as far as Sarah did because I just couldn't figure it out that fast with being able to sell on a website. But once I started posting pictures on my website, I took phone calls and FaceTiming, and that's what I did 8 to 10 hours a day in my store. I'd be on the phone with someone, take pictures, I'd send it to them, I'd FaceTime them, and we all got through. And then I'd deliver.
Wow. I have no idea how you had the energy, both of you, to get through figuring out how you're going to reopen, what you're going to have, canceling things that you had on order, and then scrambling around to just get things in place. It's amazing what you both kind of went through there. And just hearing this story now, it makes me think back to go, wow, that must have been just tough. Where did you get your energy from? And of course, Sarah, you had all the candy near you, but like, seriously, where did you pull that from?
You know, I have to tell you that Sarah and I worked really closely together. We were crazy. You know, we would see each other in the mornings, and I think we fed off each other. I saw Sarah getting all these deliveries ready and all the candy and the Easter things, baskets, and we started just feeding off each other. And, you know, I would take her ideas. Hopefully, maybe she took some of my ideas, and we did exactly what we had to do to survive, you know. And it was really just Sarah and I at the time. We had no employees there. So we were there, I think, by ourselves for at least 2 months during the craziness, right, Sarah?
Yeah. I have a couple pictures of what the store looked like. Those of you who've been into the store know I like to organize things. The store looks pretty neat and put together. It did not look like that for those 2 months. I realized I had to change the physical layout to be able to move faster, to fill orders faster, to have it look more like, instead of a retail store, a fulfillment place. And so, yeah, it was definitely crazy. One of the other things that gave me energy, and I think Wendy felt the same way, is how invested, particularly the people in Lousiville, but also just in the general area, were in shopping local, because they all felt fearful that these stores are going to go away. You know, this is a tight community, and people love to come downtown and know that they can go to Old Friends and Assorted and Pitter Patter and Eleanor, all of the places downtown become part of your lives. And so I had a lot of people say to me, even if they thought they could get it elsewhere, I really want to buy it from you. I want you to be here. And so when people say that to you, you want to be able to fill that order. They're putting a lot of trust in you. And they're also saying how much they value your business. And so that is incredibly energizing. And that was a big boost throughout April in particular.
Yes, yeah. I agree 100%. It was, people wanted to like throw money your way because they wanted you to stay in business. So I found that, and that helped a lot, you know, that they were not, everyone was dealing with their own craziness and shock and pain at home. But at the same time, they were thinking about all the small stores and businesses that they needed to support in order for them to continue to stay in business.
Definitely. And to your point, both of your businesses seem to be these beacons of positivity and fun. And to your point, what has it been like for you, the importance of that in-store experience, being retail and kind of incorporating people being in store and bringing that positivity through to the physical experience of that?
Well, especially, I know in Old Friends, you have to really be in my store to experience. I just feel like there's so much to see, and I do feel like it's an experience. You know, we've created something that, you know, it takes some walking around and reading and laughing and, you know, socializing. It's you know, it's an old friends experience. It's just I've mentioned to people, once you're into our store, you're an old friend because you spend time there. So I had a tough time being able to take pictures of things in my store because it just, you don't get to feel it. It's something you need to put your hands on and actually experience. You know, like Sarah, I mean, you need to taste the candy, right, Sarah?
Well, yeah. I did find that my general merchandise didn't translate online for that reason.
Yeah.
And that's why when we will have online sales, they'll be very specific, because the old phrase, the cliche, the kid in the candy store, is there for a reason. There's something about being in a store surrounded by sugar, and candy is always brightly colored and cheerful, and we have great natural light. That can't be replaced. And so when we were able to reopen in May, I can't remember exactly what week it was. School was still, online school was still in session, and we had the plexiglass and all of the different, we spent a lot of time painters taping the store so people knew the directions, and understanding and translating the Boulder County health requirements. Lousiville requirements was definitely onerous, but doable. The first few, I would say probably the first full week to 10 days, it was really slow. And I thought, gosh, it really, in-person shopping just may not come back now. But once BVSD's online school ended, I started to see in slow growth of particularly kids coming downtown and parents feeling like, okay, you can go on your scooter, you can go on your bike, go ahead. And it built from there, so that we're now back to a really strong in-store experience. We figured out some creative ways. I have a little rope across my door, so when we meet our capacity of kiddos or adults in the store, you can just see very easily if you could wait outside. You know, masks, I bought disposable masks, and I gave a lot of those away for the first 2 or so weeks as people got used to wearing them. I don't do that nearly as much now. And then I sent them over to old friends. I was like, here's your disposable mask. Then you need to go to Wendy, you need to buy yourself a cute little mask. And so it's so nice to have that in-store feeling back. But now that we know that that can pivot or change at any time, I also feel more confident, like I now know how to try to weather if we can't rely on that.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because I've been in both of your shops, and a lot of the people that know your stores, there's nothing that duplicates that feeling that once your eyes are drawn to something and maybe you're thinking about eating it or you're reading it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. You kind of burst out in laughter or have this nostalgic feeling about something and go, you know, I actually totally want that candy and I like that other cool thing over there. But talk to us a little bit about the changes in consumer trends that you've started to see as we've all gone through this transition. Because you're right, people can buy a lot of things online, but what is it that is maybe classical or nostalgic about what you're offering, and how does that come across when you see your customers interact?
Well, Wendy just muted herself, so I think it's me. I am definitely seeing the desire for small treats, something to brighten a day. And so obviously that's what we're, an impulse store, and we also have a price point that ranges, but we have things that are 10 cents, 15 cents. And I think that's been really important to my in-store experience, because I know this has been a time of economic uncertainty, not just in the retail sector, but in so many sectors. And so for many families, spending a great deal of money on a trip out may not feel comfortable right now. And so I'm definitely seeing that where kids are coming in and they've got the change that they have. One thing about in-person shopping that I did not change is I did accept cash, and that was huge for us. We have a little tray, we have cash procedures so that staff and anyone behind the desk felt comfortable about working with cash. But that was really important because those little purchases in that small range, those are the bread and butter of our store. So that was a really important trend to tap into, which is the smaller items, an affordable item. And then for me, nostalgia is huge because I have so many adults who come into my store and say, this makes me think of the store that was around the corner when I was a kid. And I used to ride my bike, and this is the candy I liked. I have Chuckles, I have Cowtails, all of those things that just, candy is evocative of childhood. It's evocative of freedom. It's evocative of a time that wasn't so complicated. So my nostalgic candies are really, really important right now because I think we all have that feeling of we would like life to be a little bit more like it was when it was simple and uncomplicated, and a cowtail was the highlight.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Sarah, biking, walking, and scooters and things like that. I'm almost imagining kids that are maybe doing some extra work around the house to help mom and dad out. Maybe they earn a few bucks by trimming the lawn because maybe that's just got to be something that mom and dad didn't have time for, or other things. And they would come in with just a few dollars and say, what can I get with this? And that kind of experience, I think we all remember saving money growing up and having summer jobs or just doing errands. The ability to buy something for yourself is kind of this intrinsic reward.
Absolutely. And to be able to choose it. That choice product, that experience of shopping and scanning the jars and deciding what you want, it's almost as important as the eating, is the choosing. And so that's where the brick and mortar piece, I feel like Amazon and the big online retailers, you can't compete with that, particularly when it comes to candy. And I feel the same way about Wendy's products. You know, finding those things online, it isn't as fun to do. And I feel like that's one of the ways hopefully we're going to keep brick and mortar healthy and viable.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I can see retail going through this huge transition. You know, some people wonder, is this the year Macy's will just say we can't do it any longer? We just can't survive. We know Sears has kind of gone this rough path, and you don't have anchor stores and malls anymore. And it's as if there's like the really successful, the middle group, and then you guys are at that anchor store piece of Main Street, in that you are the retail of Main Street now. And I loved hearing your story about that buy local, shop local, and support local experience. That seems like what's come out of this time. But how are you thinking about being relevant for occasions, whether it's like, you know, a birthday or an upcoming holiday? How are you going to support that piece regardless of what happens in the future?
Am I going?
Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting question also. I've thought about it a lot, how I'm going to change moving ahead. You know, what different things am I going to carry? I still have to go by people need to laugh and smile. You know, it's been an important part of my store, and it's the reason I think people come back. It's lighthearted. People need to have that, whether we're going through the pandemic or they're going through loss, or, you know, loss of business, loss of life, loss of friends. It's hard when people can't get out the door to see their friends. And so I've shifted. There's definitely a shift to smaller items that they can send to friends. and to brighten up their day, whether it be a card or a dish towel or a mug that says something funny on it. As far as Christmas and the holidays, I think it's going to be much more traditional. I don't think people are going to go crazy. You know, when I first, when we opened back up in May, people in my business did go kind of nuts. I mean, they hadn't been in a store in months, and they went crazy just buying things. And I know exactly how they feel, because I wanted to do that too. I think we all did. We had been inside looking on Amazon, you know, and online stores for months, it seemed like. And they came in and they bought a lot of things, birthdays they had missed, anniversaries they had missed. And I think, you know, when we were held up inside, no one thought about celebrating those, you know, milestones in people's lives. Anyway, going back to the holidays, I'll probably be more traditional, more family, and staying home and having things that make people smile and remember, you know, that we're all in this together, obviously, and we have to make the best of it. So go and get some candy, and then come on over and laugh while you're reading the cards, and get a mug. And, you know, I just think it'll be a more traditional, everything's going to be different this Christmas. I hope that I've done the proper, you know, buying for it also.
Yeah, it's tough to predict because you probably did a lot of your buying in July and August. And at a particular point, the window's cut off. You're not really going to get much of something after a particular point. But in our conversations about how you guys have shifted, I remember, Sarah, you talked about buying from makers, whether it's chocolate or something else. And even for you, Wendy, you actually bought from a ton of makers too, makers of masks. But what is it about this makers market and elements, maybe not, or products not sold on Amazon, that are attractive to you, and why?
Yeah, that's been important to me just in general since I took over the business. Is I do have some major brands. I have a brand called Kiekerland, and they make a lot of fun little stuff, and they're pretty big. But I really love finding the small makers, and I have found a wholesale portal called Faire, F-A-I-R-E, Faire.com. In fact, they're having their summer market this today and tomorrow. So when I log off of this, they're having a speaker talking about holiday trends. I'm going to go log on to that. And one of the things I love about this portal is A, it makes things easy for me, but B, they have they call them their values, and you can filter the vendors that you select to see product based on certain values. And one is not on Amazon. One is women owned. One is sustainable. And so they're products that are in line with values that I would like to have for my store. And they're also products that I'm not competing with, again, big box retailers, because it's not something you're going to see when you're checking out at the grocery store. I mean, that's one of the challenges of having a candy store is King Soopers has a huge amount of candy. Target has a huge amount of candy. So I've got to find unusual things that make it worthwhile to come not only get yourself downtown, but also make it, I can't compete with them on price. So there has to be value that I add that isn't just the specific product. It's curating. And I think Wendy does an amazing job of curating too, of we find the best of what we see and have it come into the store. I've found a huge demand. Everybody loves, I've found an importer who brings in things from Japan and Korea as the counterbalance to my local stuff. I also have some stuff that's a little quirky, and quirky fits with candy. And so I really am always looking for new outlets to find those quirky items.
Yeah, fantastic. And one of the things I might not have shared with you guys initially is I was an e-commerce analyst that studied Amazon and eBay and Best Buy. and ranked them all against each other and basically said, here's the best place for electronics, toys, medical advice, products and supplies. And, you know, a lot of the things that were true then are still true now. They had a really difficult time selling particular goods that just were over a price point or had an emotional or nostalgic value. And it was tough for them to actually build out their early relationships and customer confidence and ability. And outside of, you know, one-click shipping and we'll get it to you within a day or two, not much has changed from them in 20 years. But it's really encouraging to hear all the pivots that you guys have made during this period that have made your businesses stronger and more resilient and relevant to everyone out in Lousiville and the surrounding Boulder County area. I mean, this is actually probably an encouraging thing that you guys are now stronger and just more meaningful to all of us as we get through this. And I got to say, I'm thankful that you stayed open and you found a way to do it. Megan, what questions come to mind as you've seen a lot of businesses in Lousiville struggle with staying open, staying adherent to the policies and protocols, and just surviving? Like, what are the things that have come to your mind for retail?
You know, I think it's certainly been a very difficult road, and I think Lousiville, you know, I think actually both Wendy and Sarah mentioned this, is there's been tremendous community support, which I think has helped a great deal. And I think Lousiville being of a size and having these community areas where people could go to multiple shops, and I think that was really important, and also maintaining a positive attitude both for families and for our business owners, that, you know, there was support and there was an effort to make things work. I do think that dealing with the protocols and understanding those and how they evolve has been really difficult for everyone. That's one reason we've specifically done this recovery and improvement grant program, is that, you know, everyone's had to react so quickly. You know, I think, Sarah, you mentioned, you know, the week you opened back up, it was, you know, the order came very quickly from the governor, and it was like, you can open back up, you can do curbside services, you can do delivery. And so then it was, okay, but how do we do that? And how do we do that in a way that respects our customers and people feel safe? So I think that's probably still just one of the biggest ongoing things that I hear is you try something and then you have to say, nope, that didn't work. gonna have to try something else. And so the city wants to be part of supporting that, because I think it's so critical that that there's a willingness to say, you know, we want to be consistent with, you know, public health best practices, and we're doing our best to do that, but it continually evolves. And so, you know, maybe you set up some plexiglass barriers when you started and you did the taping and you put up signs and stickers, but these things are still in place and we don't have a timeline for when they're going to end, which is the uncertainty that you've both spoken to. You know, there's still a lot of discussions about when do we get to protect our neighbor and those loosened restrictions. But then the component of that is also how safe will people feel, you know, because there's what you have to do and then how comfortable people feel that influence those things. So I really appreciate what's been shared about how to cope with those things. And I think one thing that's very valuable is this conversation we're having, because it helps to know that you're in it together and that it's not a simple equation, but hearing what others have done and what has worked or what has not worked. I think I mentioned earlier this week, your conversation with the restaurants previously, you know, what doing our own delivery did not work. You know, it was an experiment we tried. We're free to admit we failed and we're going to go do something different. So I would say that's the biggest ongoing is protocols, and then the uncertainty about how long. And I think all of us have become more accustomed to we don't know when it will change, and we just live with it for what it is. But I know for businesses that need to plan orders and events, and they have their own life commitments and other things, this uncertainty just creates a lot of emotional stress as well as financial stress.
I just want to piggyback, because one of the things you're addressing is the fact that at that moment when the orders came out in May, I had been pretty much closed, and Easter was over, and my sales had gone absolutely just gone. I was selling very little. And then in that moment, it was, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to spend some money to get these things in place. I think Tracy Hobbs from Eleanor and Hobbs and I got the last 2 pieces of plexiglass at Lowe's, which was pure dumb luck, because calling a fabricator down in Denver, it would have been $600 just to have something. So that was a time where the city, the initial grant program that you did was really important to me in particular, because it gave me a cushion to be able to spend money when my revenue had gone really, really low. And I had a lot of fear about, well, if I spend this money and open my doors, what if no one comes? And here I've outlaid even more. I have no product to show for it. It's simply just operational logistics money, which is always hard to spend, right? If you don't know you're going to get something out of it, you're like, oh God, I don't want to give you that money. And so I thought that was very important. And then this grant program really speaks to that, as learning over this time, like, okay, here are the things for us to have best practices. But again, that takes investment, that takes money, and revenue is still, I'm still not to last year's levels on revenue. I think, Wendy, you beat me there by far. I'm overall about 20% down, but last month I was only 9% down, which I was feeling pretty good about. I also was a new business last year. I had a real injection in the summer of being open under new ownership for the first time. So I know last year I had some really strong numbers in general. But yeah, reinvesting in the business is hard with that uncertainty when you're not investing in product that's going to generate revenue for you. And so I think that's been really important, the public support. I also got a PPP loan. And that was really helpful, because staffing the store, not knowing who was going to come, am I going to be paying for payroll for hours where I'm not earning?
Oh my gosh, like going through that and having the courage to place your bets and put more money and do new things, like a website that you've never done before, digital marketing and social media that you all talked about. These are things outside of your comfort area that were risks, and you decided just to take them and place those bets, knowing that some would work, some might not, but it was the question of a path of success or a path of failure. I'm really encouraged by both of your stories, and excited that you made those investments in yourselves, in your businesses, because you're kind of can't separate yourself from those two. It's your livelihood, it's your identity, and your values that you guys both talked a lot about, is being able to just be present and have something that's great for your customers, that's meaningful. Ellie,
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to jump over you, but I just wanted to comment on that too, especially coming from a woman herself. It's really inspiring to see not only 2 women supporting each other, but 2 female-owned businesses right next door supporting each other. And obviously it seems like that's worked really well for you guys, being right next door and both being really positive and lighthearted stores. And it seems like a lot of the things you've been able to do for each other have really helped. So in addition to obviously a lot of the things, Sarah, that you mentioned that are coming in from the city, is there anything else that you guys would like to see moving forward in the downtown community, on Main Street, or even amongst other business owners?
Sarah?
I was like, Wendy, I'm talking too much. Get in here. You know I'll talk all day if you let me. I do think the dining out program was a value add for us too. I was a big supporter of that Remain one. Anything that gets people. So we're on Front Street. It's interesting. There is a little bit sometimes of like, hey, we're over here. Because Main Street does get a lot of attention, as it should, particularly restaurant wise, right? That's like the heartbeat. But that downtown dining program, I do think helped us because people were getting downtown. There was a reason to come downtown, because we talk a lot about fun and optimism and brightness, but you gotta get yourself to us. And if there's gotta, sometimes just coming to us isn't a reason. That's why us being next door to each other helps. Someone can come in and get a birthday party present for a 10-year-old and a retirement party present within, you know, the same square block. But there's got to be something that gets you downtown, and it's often not just one store. I really missed personally in my business, interestingly enough, the library. I can't tell you how many families go to the library and then come to Assorted as, hey, we've got our books, we're going to get our candy, and that's our trip downtown, and the family's all together, bikes, scooters. And so when the library was closed, that was hard. I was so happy, even with the limited hours. So I'm looking forward to when the library's able to be back in full swing, because man, that is a big draw downtown. So that's one for me, is the library.
Well, I agree with everything in my end, yeah, that Sarah, you said, getting everybody and anyone downtown. I think the restaurants opening up and closing Main Street was huge. I mean, people were walking around again, you know, slowly, and they were scared, but they were able to be outside, walk around, look in the windows, possibly stop in stores. That was huge. That was a big thing for, I think, everyone in Lousiville, not just the consumers, but for the restaurant owners and retail. That got people outside, that told people that it was okay. It's okay to go outside again and to see faces, and it's okay to buy things and carry your bags around. And that's huge. And anything we can do to keep people going outside and you know, visiting these restaurants and establishments, retail stores. You know, my biggest concern is what's going to happen when it's too cold outside. Mm-hmm. You know, we live in Colorado, we're used to it, but are people still, are they going to be sitting outside in, you know, on the patios? You know, hopefully maybe there'll be heat lamps. Are they going to go back inside for the rest of the winter until spring comes again? Are they going to be too scared to come into a store? You know, are they going to catch the flu? Or, you know, we do everything we can to help, you know, people feel safe in our stores, but we've got to get them out of the house in order to get them into our stores. So yeah, anything the city can do and the restaurants to get people out and to feel safe. And so, yeah, we're going to have to continue with the plexiglass and the constant cleaning and spraying and hand sanitizers. And if we have to do that for years to come, that's fine. We'll do it. I mean, it was quick. I mean, like Sarah said, you know, they got the last plexiglass. I think my husband got the last 4 before then. You know, we were scrambling. It was crazy. And the hand sanitizer, that wasn't even possible to get. I had sold out of all my hand sanitizer, you know, and the gloves and the masks. And you know what? If we have to do that, we know how to do it now, which is good. So if they go back inside, hopefully we can pull them back out again. And if not, then we'll just keep delivering. Mm-hmm. Driving around.
And I think it's that spirit of both of what you've just shared is really encouraging, because you're in it for the long haul. You're in it to be relevant and open as best as possible. So I love that spirit. And I just also think these conversations are really important too, to be sharing your insights with Megan so that the programs that she's working on in the future are as most supportive for economic revitalization as possible.
Yeah, Mark, I think that's great. And we do truly welcome that input. I think without these sort of conversations and having very frank discourse about, like I said, those things that were working and were not working well, you can't find the appropriate path forward. So, you know, you look for the silver lining. And I think one thing this pandemic has done is brought about some of those conversations, especially for me being new to the city, with business owners that I otherwise would not have met, or maybe not have met right away. You know, people who might have had some barrier just of time or reluctance, or, you know, I don't know this person, picked up the phone or shot me an email and told me, you know, what they were going through. So I do feel that's really important to the city being adaptive, but it does have to come with engagement, because we could be adaptive but not responsive, right? So we could be changing and adapting, but if that wasn't actually aligned with the needs out there, we'd sort of be spinning our wheels. So those things are very welcome, and I would share with the business owners who are listening in. I think City Council has been extremely supportive and in tune also with those things, and, you know, what we should be prioritizing in terms of our time and our funds. You know, the city going through expenditure cuts and staff reductions, but at the same time making sure there was support for the business community, I think speaks very, very highly of the value placed on the business community.
So we're at our hour, and I've noticed some comments coming in of just appreciation for Wendy and Sarah from different folks, and appreciation for you, Megan, and sharing your story and of what you've been doing on the city side. I think this all works well together in this ecosystem of supporting local, growing local, and keeping things vibrant. I know I have a personal spot in my heart for retail, having done it before and run a 30-person store and doing all the buying, the selling, and the procurement, running the POS systems. There's a reason they call them POS systems. Sometimes you want to just throw them out. And the fact that you two did these new innovative things, it makes me feel like nostalgic about some of those moments. And talking about how Amazon's not really a competitor of yours, you know, that's kind of exciting, because it tells me that you know you're relevant, you know you're valuable, and you're not afraid of them. In fact, you don't even think of them as a competitor sometimes, because you're just different. They're never going to do what you do. So that's exciting. You've shared with me some insights that are super meaningful. And I hope the audience today of business owners that are struggling perhaps with some of these things still learn something from all of you and said, you know, if this happens again, all right, now I know my choices. Now I know my options. Look what Sarah did. Look what Wendy did. No big deal. Look what the city's doing with these grants. No big deal. I can get ready for this if things get worse. And I think that's the encouragement of owners, entrepreneurs that you shared today. So I'm just super thankful to both of you for that.
Well, thank you. It's been really, really interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting it together. It's actually been very interesting, and I learned a lot.
Me too.
Fabulous. And thanks again to Megan from the city, who's been a co-sponsor with us on this incredible series. For everyone that's been tuning in today or watches this online on our recorded session, there's 2 more sessions. Don't miss those. If you missed the restaurant one, head back to that. There's awesome insights in there. And if you guys have any questions or needs, don't hesitate to reach out to Ellie or I at Gambale Labs. We'd love to have a conversation. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.